Hey everybody, how you doing? Derek here from M1 Realty. Now this is going to be one of my favorite videos that I do all year because it gives you a really good idea of what it's really like to live here in Metro Detroit. If you're moving here from cities like Chicago, New York City, or really anywhere else in the country, there's a really good chance that you're moving here to take advantage of our natural resources and also the lower cost of living in a cheaper state in a cheaper area. This video covers everything you're going to need to know, from the cost of groceries to taxes to housing. So as we jump into things, please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you can be notified every time I make a new video about living and playing in this beautiful Great Lakes state that we live in and the Detroit metro area in general. And that's especially true if you're looking to move into the Metro Detroit area. I've had people from all over the world reach out to me and say, "Hey Derek, can you help me with my move to Detroit?" And I always say yes. I absolutely love hearing from you guys, and I love helping you accomplish your real estate goals. My contact information is down here on the screen, so make sure if you need to reach out to me, you can always call, text, or email me at any time. Now that we have that out of the way, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Alright, so as we get into this, we're going to talk about your daily expenses. This is going to cover things like utilities, groceries, taxes, gas, just everything like that, including real estate prices for rentals and for sales. What I'm going to be talking about today pretty much pertains to the Metro Detroit area. And when I say Metro Detroit, I mean the Tri-County area of Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne counties. Now the area we're talking about is pretty big. It pretty much stretches from the north shore of Lake Erie down in the south up to the north shore of Lake St. Clair in the north. And the Metro Detroit area has about 4.5 million people living in it, so it's definitely the most populous part of the state. So as we move forward, we're going to be talking about daily expenses, and we're also going to be talking about real estate prices for rent and for purchase. And this is probably the part that you're going to want to know the most about because we've seen some massive changes recently. Let's start by talking about gas. What does a gallon of gas cost here? Well, right now, it's kind of a weird time because we're seeing lots of inflation. The Russia war with Ukraine is about a month old, and that's caused gas prices to spike. They're starting to come down a little bit, but as of right now, cost of a gallon of gas is actually about $4 a gallon for regular, up to about $4.50 or so for premium. Now, before that, I would say for the past couple years, prices have been hovering in the $2 to $2.70 range. We've seen them a little bit hovering around $3 a gallon, here and there, but typically it's been below $3 a gallon, and that's usually where we're at. And if you're lucky enough to drive an electric car, well, you're definitely in luck then, because you don't have to worry about the price of gas, and we do have charging stations all over the place in the metro area. One of the good things about moving to and living in the Motor City is when it comes to automotive, we're definitely on the forefront, and we always test things out in our market before they expand to the country at large. And for whatever reason, gas prices do tend to be higher in Oakland County than they do in Macomb or Wayne counties, but generally they're only going to vary by about 20 cents a gallon or so. But if you're running low on gas and you're leaving Oakland County to drive to one of those other counties, you might want to wait till you get there before you gas up, just to save yourself a few bucks. Next on our list, let's talk about groceries. Now this is obviously going to vary greatly depending on what you buy and where you shop. It depends on where you're shopping. If you go to an Aldi or a store like that, your prices are going to obviously be quite a bit lower than if you shop at a Kroger or a Meijer's, which are the two main grocery stores in the area. And obviously if you're going to be shopping at Whole Foods, your prices are going to be higher there than they would be at Meijer or Kroger, and a lot of it depends on what you purchase and how many people you're purchasing for. Obviously you are going to save some money by just being in this area though, so for comparison's sake, you're going to spend for the same amount of groceries about 4% less than you'd spend in Cleveland. You're going to spend about 8.6% less than in Chicago, and a whopping 32% less than you'd spend in New York City. This is all great, but again, keep in mind it depends on what you buy and where you buy it. All right, next up, let's talk about utilities. Now this is a little odd. This is one of the few areas where the cost in the Detroit area is going to be a little bit higher than it would be in much of the rest of the country. You are going to spend a little bit more on your utilities here than you would other places. A lot of that has to do with our climate. We're pretty far north here, so we tend to have very cold winters, and it's not uncommon for temperatures in the winter to stay below freezing for literally weeks at a time. This is obviously going to cause your gas bill in the winter to be quite a bit higher than it would be in many other parts of the country. On the flip side, our summers are hotter and more humid than most people would think. While we don't see temperatures in the hundreds very often, although it does happen, it's not uncommon for our highs in the summer to be in the high 80s to high 90s. And in Michigan, it's never a dry heat. If you look at a map, you'll see that we're surrounded by massive bodies of water, and we have a ton of inland lakes and rivers, and that all translates into pretty humid summers. And that means your AC is going to be running quite a bit in the summer, even at night a lot of times. In doing the research for this video, I was kind of surprised to see how much higher our utility cost was than it is in a lot of other places in the country, although it is offset with a lot of our other costs being much cheaper. But average utility bills in Detroit run about 9% more than they do in Cleveland. And surprisingly, compared to Chicago and New York, our utility bills are about 50% higher here than they are in those cities. And again, that increased utility cost is going to be offset by a lot of the other factors. And for reference, I'm going to give you the amount that I pay personally, because I think it's just going to be a good reference point for what you might have to pay if you choose to move into the Detroit area. Now, obviously, your utility costs are going to depend a lot upon where you live, what size house you buy, how many people are in your household, and the amount that you run the furnace and air conditioning. And of course, there's going to be a lot of other variables, just like anything else that go into that. But just for frame of reference, so I live in a house that's about 1,500 square feet, and my house is about 100 years old. So forget about insulation in the walls, and I mean, we've added some insulation into the attic, but the actual structure of the house is not super energy efficient. So in my house, we have added all vinyl windows with the most energy efficient glass that they could provide. And we've got a new roof on the house, and our underlayment has some insulating quality as well. But the one thing I haven't replaced yet in my house is the furnace. So the furnace is a little bit on the older side, not terribly efficient. So in the dead of winter, at our absolute coldest point of the year, my average gas bill is about in the $225 to $250 range per month. Now in the summer, we're obviously not running the heat very much. The only thing we're using gas for at that point is to use our hot water heater and our stove. Now I should mention that almost every home in the Metro Detroit area is heated through natural gas heat. Most of the time that is through a gas forced air furnace, which if you're not familiar with those, what that does is there's gas jets that heat up the air, and then there's a blower motor that kicks on that moves that hot air throughout the house. Other forms of heating in the area, there are some homes that have boiler systems, and that could be radiator heat, which isn't terribly efficient, or baseboard heat, which is pretty efficient, and radiant heat as well, where it actually heats the floor of the house, and then the heat radiates up throughout the rest of the house. But by far and away, gas forced air is the most common type of heating you're going to find. And in the summertime, I mean, our typical gas bill is usually like 20 to 30 bucks. It's not very expensive in the summer. Conversely, our electric bill is pretty low in the wintertime, usually around 50 to 60 bucks a month. But in the summer, when we have our AC cranking all day, every day, it's not uncommon for us to pay anywhere from like $200 to about $275 a month for electric. And again, if you have a house that's a newer build that's well insulated, you're going to pay a lot less than that for gas and electric. But again, it all depends on the size of the house. It depends on a lot of different factors. What kind of windows you have. You'd be surprised at how much heat and cool escapes through the windows. So upgrading those to vinyl clad windows is always a good idea if you don't already have them in the house. And you can always add insulation in the attic as well. Now let's talk about water bills. So almost every home in the Metro Detroit area uses city water that's supplied by the Detroit Water Authority. Our water comes from Lake Huron, and it's actually really good quality. It's rated one of the highest in terms of city water systems in the entire country. Don't get me started about the poor people that live up in Flint who have been dealing for years with poor quality water with lead in their water system. They actually started running into those problems after they got switched off of the Detroit water system. And I hope they resolve that situation soon, but luckily in the Detroit area, we're not affected by any of those problems as far as like lead in the water or anything like that. Now, every city handles water billing a little differently. But generally speaking, at least for us, our water bills come out quarterly. And I think that's the case for most cities. I think in some cities they're doing where it comes out every month now, but typically you're going to get them every 3 months. And right now we're running on average about $100 to $125 every month for our city water, and that includes the city sewer bill as well. Now I should stop and mention, we've got 4 kids, so there's 6 people living in my house. And we use a lot more water than somebody who just like lives by themselves or has a smaller family than we do. So obviously, as with everything, the amount you pay for water every month is going to vary pretty substantially. In most of the cities in the Metro Detroit area, trash removal is actually handled by the city, and that's just a portion of the property taxes that you pay go towards trash removal. Now, there are some cities in the metro area, some in Macomb County, some in like the outlying areas, northern Oakland County, where you pay a contractor directly for trash removal. And in general, that typically tends to run about $15 to $30 a month. And I think with that, you actually pay it just once a year. And then, if you buy or sell your house in the meantime, it just gets prorated just like the water bill or the taxes. And finally, let's discuss internet and cable. We've got several different cable providers in the area. We've got Xfinity, WOW, AT&T, Spectrum is in the area. There's DSL providers for internet. So there's a lot going on, and not every city will have every carrier. So before you pick an area to move into, that might be one of the areas that you want to do some research on, just so you know what companies you're going to be dealing with and what their typical charges are. And they're all going to be right within the same ballpark as far as monthly charges, but a lot of it boils down to, it depends on what level of service you want, what speed of internet you want to pay for, and any add-ons, things like that. Whether you want a home security system, a lot of the cable companies like to bundle up cable, internet, and like home security as one. So definitely do your homework before you move forward on those. And again, using my home for example, like we haven't had cable in a couple of years, but when we did, we basically had every channel known to man and the super fast internet, and our total charge was about $300 a month. And when we finally got smart and cut the cord, we kept our, the super fast internet service through our cable provider. We've actually upgraded it since then. So that costs us about $150 a month, but it is like blindingly fast internet. And we basically just use Roku for all of our, streaming services. We have a couple different streaming services that we use. It's saving us on the average about $100 a month. Less than what we were paying when we had cable providing everything. And when it actually comes down to the average internet service in the Metro Detroit area, that cost per month is about $78 a month. And that cost doesn't include cable, that's just strictly internet, and that's at a rate of 60 Mbps service. Now, let's talk about everybody's favorite topic, taxes. Before we get into that, please keep in mind that I'm not a tax professional, and I definitely recommend consulting with one before you move into the area. If you need a recommendation for tax pros, I can definitely hook you up with one. I know some really, really great creative tax people that do some work for me and for people that I know as well. Here in Michigan, we do have a 6% flat sales tax. Now that doesn't pertain to some grocery items, but for pretty much everything else that you buy, it's going to be a 6% sales tax. And the income tax rate in Michigan is 4.25%. Now I know some states like California are all the way up to like 13.3%. Other states like Texas and Nevada, they don't have any kind of income tax at all. But I think in the grand scheme of things, our income tax rate is pretty much lower than almost the majority of all 50 states. As far as property taxes go, again, that's one of those things that's going to vary greatly from city to city and from county to county. Very, very generally speaking, Macomb County is going to have slightly lower taxes than Oakland or Wayne counties. But again, that depends a lot upon the city that you choose to live in. And one of the rules of thumb is, again, generally speaking, a lot of the outlying areas on the northern Oakland, northern Macomb County, southern Wayne County that are a little bit more rural are going to have a lower tax rate than cities that are closer to the city center, like Detroit is known for having pretty high property taxes. The inner ring suburbs in Oakland and Macomb County, as well as Wayne County, also will have relatively high property taxes, and they tend to go down a little bit as the further out you go. In Ferndale, which is where I live in Oakland County, we've got one of the higher tax rates in the entire county. I think it's the third highest in the county. But again, our city services are really, really good. So it's like one of those things where, you get what you pay for. Before you make your move, that's one of those things that I recommend doing your research on. Highly recommend, checking what the tax rates are in any of the cities that you're interested in moving into, because that is that's probably the main factor that influences what your monthly payment is going to be, because obviously your principal and interest are going to be the same no matter what city you move to. Doesn't matter what county, what city, if whatever your interest rate is going to dictate what your principal and interests are. Insurance rates vary a little bit. They're going to be higher if you live in Detroit or if you're in a city that borders Detroit. That's just the way it is here. But it's not going to vary so much that it's really going to affect your payment a whole lot. But if you move from a low tax city to a high tax city, the increase in taxes could definitely make your monthly payment quite a bit higher than you'd be paying otherwise. So when you're researching your move, before you decide to commit to anything, just reach out to me, because I can put a comparison together and email it over to you regarding tax rates in all kinds of different municipalities. Pretty much any place that you want to move to, I can send you a lot of information regarding those cities. Because the last thing I want for you is to purchase a home here, be living there for a year, and then get hit by a sky-high increase in taxes, and your monthly payment jumps up, and just makes life difficult for you. We want to avoid that at all costs. All right, now that we've gotten through that, stick with me, because we're going to get into the good stuff now. We're going to talk about housing. This is the area where we've seen some of the highest increases in cost of living, but fear not, because compared to much of the rest of the country, you're going to find that our home prices here are extremely affordable. In fact, that's one of the reasons why so many people are moving into the Detroit area, is because our home prices are so much lower than in much of the rest of the country. If you're coming from someplace like California, New York, Washington, could be either Washington State or Washington, D.C., they both have very high housing prices, our home prices are going to seem extremely cheap to you. Now, on the flip side, if you decide to move here from somewhere like West Virginia, you're probably going to have sticker shock when you see how much it costs to live here. But by and large, we're a really affordable place to live. And since housing costs is probably the main factor that factors into cost of living, you definitely want to do your research before you move here. But let's jump into it right now. We're going to talk first about how much it costs to rent property here, and that could be apartments or homes. And then we'll talk a little bit about how much it costs to purchase. Rental prices, of course, vary from area to area, from city to city, even from neighborhood to neighborhood within cities. So, obviously you want to do your research on different areas that you want to be in before you move forward. But on average, rent prices are up about 12% from 2020 to 2021. And so far in 2022, I haven't seen anything that would indicate that increase is going to slow down anytime soon. Now, as with everything, that increase is relative depending where you're coming from in the country. But on average, a 2-bedroom apartment is running anywhere from $1,250 to about $1,400 a month. Now, I just took like a middle of the road suburb, middle of the road apartment complex, and kind of priced them out. I found a couple different places. That's the price range you're going to be looking at for a average 2-bedroom apartment. And the average 3-bedroom apartment is going anywhere from $1,450 up to about $1,775 a month. Now, are you going to be able to find cheaper apartments than that or more expensive ones? Absolutely. Like I said, I just kind of took a very basic middle of the road area. Those are the prices that they're currently at. You can definitely find like a 2-bedroom. You could probably find something for under $1,000 a month. But at that point, I'm not sure if it's an area that you'd want to move to. You're going to have to definitely do your research, go check it out in person first, make sure you're going to be comfortable there. And some of the, the more upscale suburbs, you're definitely going to be paying more than that per month. And, I don't think you'll have any issues regarding, personal safety or anything like that, although you never know, it could happen anywhere. but you know, generally speaking, you're going to be in a really nice upscale area if you're paying more than that. And the same goes for single-family homes. You know, we've seen a really substantial increase in the average rental price over the past couple of years. So your average 2-bedroom home, just very basic. We're talking no garage, no basement, just a box with 2 bedrooms in it. You could pay anywhere from $1,100 a month in southern Oakland County up to about $1,800 a month in more upscale areas. And in those same areas, your average 3-bedroom home is going to run you anywhere from about $1,400 a month up to and over $2,000 a month, depending on the area that you are looking at and the size of the home. Now the good news is, when you put it into perspective with the rest of the country, again, our housing tends to be significantly cheaper than a lot of places. We're generally just a little bit below the rental rate for a city like Cleveland. And if you compare us with Chicago, our housing cost is about 30% less for the same size property that you get in Chicago, and it's 60% less than you get in New York City. And we've seen a lot of people moving from Chicago, other Midwest cities as well. And you know, we actually tend to get a fair amount of people coming in internationally from all over the world, basically. You know, Detroit's such a melting pot of different cultures that, you know, people will come here, and then next thing you know, they're bringing their family members to move into the Detroit area as well. So it's really cool. That's one of the great things about this area, is that it's so diverse. All right, now as we jump into the cost of buying and selling real estate in Metro Detroit, help me out by giving me a big thumbs up for this video, and please subscribe to this channel. You know, it really helps me out, and it allows me to just get information out to more people just like you on a weekly basis. And you know, I truly do appreciate it. So the Metro Detroit area real estate market has been on absolute fire for the past couple of years, much like the rest of the country. Now there's many reasons for that, and that is a topic for another video and another day. But in general, the main reasons why we're seeing such an increase in prices has a lot to do with low inventory and a lot to do with extremely low interest rates. At the time we're making this video, interest rates have started to creep up a little bit, and that should help kind of like rein in the out of control price increases on real estate, but we're not there yet. It's still happening. Interest rates have jumped from, you know, hovering around 3% up to about 4.5%. So in the grand scheme of things, as of right now, our interest rates are historically still really low. Although, you know, some people are having sticker shock because they've been so used to like historically low interest rates for you know, for a couple of years now at this point, that now that they're just like pretty low, people are thinking that they're high. Although, you know, they'll get used to it here before too long. I don't think we're going to see those incredibly low interest rates again anytime soon. So, you know, let's just deal with the reality that we're in right now. As for average sale prices, so the average sale price jumped from $258,000 in February of 2001 all the way up to $280,000 in February of 2002. That's an 8.5% jump in just 1 year, which is more than double the, you know, historical rate of increase of about 3%. You know, 3% increase year over year is considered a healthy market. 8.5 is, you know, obviously substantially more than that, and is kind of, you know, price increases of that much can't sustain themselves for that long. And keep in mind that 8.5% jump is for the entire metro area as a whole, and the Metro Detroit area is a huge area. So, and there's dozens of cities within that metro area. So, you know, the rate of increase in some, you know, the really popular cities is substantially more than that. You know, here in Ferndale, we're at I believe a 13 or 14% increase year over year. Other areas are upwards of almost 20% year over year, which definitely can't be sustained for very long, because at a certain point people are just going to stop buying. And there's a couple areas as well in Metro Detroit, a couple cities where the average sale prices remain really steady. I mean, I think a couple days ago I did a report on a house in I think it was in River Rouge, and like the year-over-year increase, I mean, it was about 1%, so substantially lower than everywhere else. But that's to be expected in the in a big major metropolitan area. You're going to have varying differing amounts of appreciation. Overall, though, supply and demand is really what's driving this market right now, and there's a lot of factors for that, but basically what it boils down to, I think, is that there's a lot of people who are getting to that age now where they're trying to enter the real estate market, and there's just not enough houses to put them in. This isn't helped by the fact that going through the Great Recession and coming out of it in that span of several years, home builders for a while there just couldn't build because they couldn't afford, the prices were so low they couldn't make any money building homes, so they just really didn't do that for several years during the recession. And then as we came out of the recession, there were several factors involved with that as well, but home builders just really didn't have the resources to build enough homes, and that's kind of where we're at right now. They're building as much as they can, but it's not enough to accommodate all the new buyers that are entering the market right now. For much of the past year, raw material prices have been fluctuating, but they've gone up substantially from where they traditionally have been. And more recently, there's a lot of supply chain issues and labor shortages. So, they either don't have the materials or the manpower or both to really build enough houses to accommodate all the people who want them right now. So we've got all those buyers who have been in the metro area for their whole lives, basically looking to buy, and there just aren't enough houses for them to purchase. And now, the economy in the metro area is not just automotive anymore. It's pretty diversified. We've got a lot of tech companies in here. We've got, more major mortgage companies that are just hiring thousands and thousands of people. So we've kind of diversified our economy. And along with that, there's an influx of people coming in from out of the area, which is, why I'm making this video and talking to you right now. But, that's not helping solve the housing shortage. But, with anything, the only constant in the real estate market is that it's always changing. So, it seems like we're nearing the peak. We're at an extreme seller's market right now. We've been in that for years. We've been in a seller's market probably since 2011, 2012, I think is when I first noticed the market shifting a little bit. And we are at, like, if this isn't the peak, I hate to see what the peak is, because we're getting there. It's pretty tough sledding to find homes for people right now, simply because the inventory is so low and there's so much competition. But we're getting it done, but it's not an easy task. But it's like one of those things where you just have to wait it out. The market always figures it out. The market is the market, so it will shift to accommodate buyers at a certain point. Now, that being said, I've heard from so many people that they're going to hold off on purchasing a home right now. They want to wait for the market to crash and then they'll pick something up really cheap. I mean, okay, first things first, I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I would let you guys know exactly what's going to happen with the market. But since I don't, I'll just give you my best prediction, having been in the real estate business for 2 decades and having a pretty good sense of where things are headed. I've been able to anticipate all the major changes in the market since I've been in the business. So here's what I think is going to happen. I do think the rising interest rates is going to kind of put the brakes on home prices anyway, from still increasing so much. But I definitely don't see a major crash coming, simply because the market that we're in right now is easily explained by supply and demand. So, I was in the business, I got in the business in 2003, and by 2005, I could tell that we were in for a whole lot of trouble because the market just didn't make sense, right? They were, mortgage companies were just giving mortgages to anybody with a pulse, that, whether or not they had a job, whether or not they could afford to make payments on it. It was really insane, like what they were doing, some of these mortgages they were writing. And it was all based on the crazy assumption that, well, home prices are just going to keep rising, so when these people get in trouble, they can just refinance or sell. Well, obviously, at a certain point, when everybody starts selling, the whole market implodes and prices go down, and then those people are stuck getting foreclosed on. Long story short. So I don't see anything like that right now, because the market fundamentals are, the market's doing what it's supposed to do based on the level of demand that we have and the level of supply. I mean, it's causing prices to go up. So raising interest rates is going to help that somewhat, but at a certain point, we've got a lot of home sellers that have been wanting to maybe sell, but they've been just hesitant to. They've been sitting in their homes. Whether it has to do with COVID or people taking a forbearance or refinancing, or instead of selling their home and purchasing a new home, they've just decided to upgrade their existing home. A lot of different factors, but at a certain point, we're going to have to get some influx of supply. It's going to come from somewhere, and I have a feeling that's where it's going to come from. We're going to see probably a few foreclosures hit the market, but it's not going to be enough to really influence the level of supply and demand that much. And it doesn't help that economists are all over the place on their forecast for home sales in the this year in 2022, and they basically have, from what I've seen, have given up even predicting where it's going to go in future years. 6 months ago, 7 months ago, they were predicting that the rate of home price increases would slow down this year and pretty much stay steady through 2025. I haven't seen those predictions far enough out at this point, and the economists that I follow are all over the place at this point. Some of them think the market's going to tank. Other ones think the market's going to keep going up like crazy. So we're just going to have to buckle up, enjoy the ride, see where it takes us, and just be flexible and be able to adapt to whatever the market throws at us, which we will, because that's what we've always done. The one thing that I do believe 100% though is that the market fundamentals in Michigan will stay attractive versus the rest of the country. I mean, we might have some areas that regionally have issues where they might be like a regional crash in the housing market. I don't think that's going to happen here for several reasons. In fact, I think the long-term prospects for Michigan and the Detroit area are pretty bright. Let's put that in contrast with the Southwest, which is an area near and dear to me. I used to live in Arizona. I went to college in Arizona. I'm extremely familiar with the area, with the water supply issues that they're running into. But the Southwest, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, California, they've been in a massive drought for 20 years now, and basically the majority of the water for the entire for that part of the country is supplied by the Colorado River, which is entirely dependent on snow melt. So when it doesn't snow, those people don't have water. They've gotten to the point now where they've had to put in emergency protocols for water conservation. Now they say they've got it planned out to where it's not going to impact the area for the foreseeable future, but if this drought goes on for another 10, 20 years, like who knows what's going to be the case at that point. You might have, Lake Mead might be completely dried up. I mean, who knows? It could get really scary there. And you factor in other parts of the world where, climate change is going to impact people's access to fresh water, and then it really gets pretty scary. On a long enough timeline, what we're looking at is people are going to be impacted by water insecurity, and there's going to be population migrations that happen because of that. Well, we're pretty secure here in Michigan and in the Detroit area. We literally have 20% of the entire world's supply of fresh water surrounding us, so we're good to go for the foreseeable future here. And then when you look at Metro Detroit specifically, we've got a diversified economy. We've got world-class universities here. We're on an international border. We've got plenty of available space for people to build and move to and spread out. I think we're going to be open for business for the foreseeable future. And again, if you're considering a move into the Metro Detroit area, you can always call me, text me, email me. I love hearing from you guys. I love it when you reach out to me, and I can definitely help you accomplish all of your real estate goals. I hope this was informative and helpful for you. And until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you soon. Thanks a lot.